Audio version of David's Choice, a semi-factual article first published at the Alternative Facts Bulletin Australia, originally hosted at wordpress.com. License: you may copy and/or distribute this file, provided you do not profit financially and do not edit or otherwise alter this file. 1. David's Choice. The Australian immigration minister's struggle against a married couple and their 2 daughters highlights the difficulty of having to be cruel to little folk in order to satisfy a cruel and vocal minority in the Australian electorate. The cause of David Coleman's difficulty is a, quote, devious, unquote, Tamil couple, originally from Sri Lanka, who, quote, trick the locals, unquote, of Biloela, Queensland, into believing they are law-abiding, welcome members of the local community. The dastardly duo managed to dupe the federal authorities into supplying them with genuine permits validating their presence in the country in full compliance with Australian and international law. The husband even had the audacity to find a job and pay tax. Such was the skill of the insidious infiltrators that their plot to live quietly in Biloela went unfoiled for several years, until a poll-battered Liberal national government noticed an opportunity to score points with Hanson curious voters. But as the mighty hammer of justice was about to fall on the Biloela cell, as the family is known to some, a motley crew of lawyers, journalists, and Biloela folk said no. There followed a 9-month battle to prevent the Immigration Department carrying out their duty to the Queen of England. Fact check: upon taking office, all Australian MPs and ministers pledged their allegiance to the British head of state. In August 2018, perceived good cop David Coleman took over from widely loathed cop Peter Dutton as the minister overseeing the Biloela problem, but the mission remains the same. All Mr. Coleman wants to do is deport 2 foreigners, explained a minion. As a bonus, Mr. Coleman is also offering to exile their Aussie-born daughters, Kopika and Tharunakar, who should not have been born in the first place according to Peter Dutton. Technically, however, the girls committed nothing contestable when they arrived in the country, and so Mr. Coleman will allow them to keep their Australian birth certificates. He will even allow the family to be expelled together, on the same plane, in adjacent seats, even though this concession is likely to encumber the department when haggling with airlines. As far as Mr. Coleman can tell, the main reason the family dreads deportation to Sri Lanka is their ignorance of that country. Fortunately, Mr. Coleman recently became an expert on Sri Lanka after reading a report prepared for him by his department. It is called Sri Lanka, a report prepared for Mr. Coleman. In it, he discovered that Sri Lanka is a utopia where joyful peasants frolic through daisy-spangled meadows, strum languidly on lutes, and improvise commemorative poetry about a pack of wild dogs who one day, for some reason, promised to permanently suppress their natural inclination, thenceforth to only gently nuzzle fluffy ducklings, bunny rabbits, and Tamils, rather than eat them. For example, it is well known, to those who know things, that in Sri Lanka, during the previous 12 months, not a single Tamil has accidentally fallen downstairs, or been accidentally shot by a policeman who was only joking and didn't know the gun was loaded, or been accidentally denied employment or adequate shelter, or been otherwise disadvantaged due to past affiliation or present ethnicity. It has also been verified that Australian-born children, deposited in Sri Lanka, are just as safe from disease, poverty, renewed warfare, and other harms, as are Sri Lankan children. It's true. These particulars have been documented by the UN, ICRC, World Health Organization, as well as MSF, Human Rights Watch, and various others whose only reason to exist is to persecute the Commonwealth Government of Australia. Editor's note. It seems so unfair that the powerful are constantly being picked on for no good reason other than the fact that they're a bunch of bastards. Meanwhile, Australian researchers and statisticians, working more or less voluntarily for the government in the fields of pediatric health and education, have concluded that Sri Lanka is not too bad, relatively speaking. "The children from Biloela should be okay," said one consultant. "But don't quote me," he added. Indeed, according to comparative data, there are some Australian children who would be much better off in Sri Lanka, if only they could get themselves deported. 2. The Broad Church. Members of the public are now calling for clemency, with more than 150,000 having signed a petition to that effect by early January 2019. Meanwhile, some of Mr. Coleman's Liberal Party colleagues are WhatsApping him with conflicting recommendations as to what he should do, while others prefer the traditional method of communicating their ideas, shouting over the telephone. Mr. Coleman thus finds himself trapped in the so-called broad church of liberal values. Fully liberal liberals will, amongst their brethren, roll their eyes at the mere mention of words like clemency, while other, less liberal liberals feel that a display of common sense might induce swing voters to be more merciful during the impending electoral purge. In a recent focus group project, commissioned by a luncheon club linked to the Liberal Party, an attempt was made to more accurately discern voters' true intentions through the study of their children in school. The study took advantage of a stage of intellectual development, observed in many children, when the child appears to mimic the attitudes of the parents. In one session, conducted in a lower middle class, marginal liberal electorate, the children were asked to use paints and crayons to describe liberal government. The results included depictions of eagles feasting on puppies, various super-villains wearing Union Jacks, and a somewhat overwrought study of vampires preying on a little pony named Fluttershy. Fact check: Fluttershy is a popular character in the socialist propaganda Trojan, My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic. Meanwhile, an attempt to survey children in an incorrigibly poor neighborhood of Hobart had to be abandoned when the little cherubs, stirred to a passion, seized 3 classrooms, and proclaimed the First Republic of the glorious, patriotic and heroic proletariat of Tasmania. 3. Final victory. Since a spectacular March 2018 raid on the Biloela family's lair, which was brilliantly planned and executed by a squad of elite stormtroopers, the dangerous family has been held under armed guard in Melbourne. During these 9 months, experts monitoring the Aussie-born child prisoners have reported that the progressive effects of their captivity remain within limits that are acceptable to the Department of Immigration. It is said that good things are worth waiting for, or working for, or both, and in this case the Commonwealth Government of Australia, under the command of the Liberal Party, has certainly worked both long and hard to vanquish the latest straw proxy. No doubt Mr. Menzies would have an opinion about the family waiting in Melbourne. After all, he did espouse that things be done thoroughly, and that the Australian people, loyal to the Queen, should be defended against anyone who might threaten their purity of purpose. Expulsion of the family was to occur just days before Christmas, but a deferment until February was arranged so as to deny to cartoonists a turkey shoot. Naturally, nobody in the Liberal Party of Australia would like to be mistaken for a cold, calculating hypocrite. Even at this late stage there remain some annoying loose ends to be snipped off, things to do with nominal rule of law and nominal democracy. There is also a pesky petition, at change.org, that will soon be delivered to the government, on camera, unless they can somehow avoid it. In addition, protests are planned in several cities for Saturday 19 January, 2019. For more information, or to find out how you can help, search Twitter using the hashtag #HomeToBilo, spelt B-I-L-O.